Hey friends, I'm Mel. Welcome to my channel. When I ask you guys what you want to see more of here, the absolute #1 answer is always more crock-pot recipes. And friends, I rack my brain and search the internet looking for something different and new, but a lot of times I seem to find the same old recipes, maybe just one different ingredient added or a new snazzy name. So I decided to pull out my most versatile and flavorful crock-pot recipes and show you how they're the only crock-pot recipes you'll ever need, simply by shifting your thought process. So let's get started on the first recipe, then I'll throw in my 2 cents about what else you can do with it. Today we're going to make a cheesy chicken and potato crock-pot meal, and quite honestly, these are most of the ingredients. The seasonings do all of the work here. We're using some frozen hash brown potatoes, some chunked up chicken that I have thawed out of the freezer. We'll throw some bacon and cheese on at the end. But this is all that's in this delicious meal. First things first, we always want to give our crock pot a good spray so that nothing sticks. This recipe calls for a 2-pound bag of the Southern style hash browns. These are the ones that are like diced up. I'm making a little smaller version of this recipe because we just don't need that much. But first you're going to put about half of your potatoes down in your crock pot. Then you're going to take about a teaspoon or so of olive oil, avocado oil, whatever you like to use. We're going to season it up with some paprika, some onion powder, some garlic powder, and some Italian seasoning. Those holes were not big enough. Now I'm just going to give that a stir to get everything coated. And I will have the complete official recipe with all the measurements down in the description box for you. I'm just eyeballing mine. And I did get this recipe from JC Tanner. I think she's on Facebook, but I found her on TikTok. And if you can't tell, my hash browns, they're frozen. You don't have to let them thaw out. Next, you're going to put in about a pound of chicken breast. And you want it chunked up into like bite-sized pieces. This is some that I had frozen. I had already chopped it up. It's not all the way thawed out, but it'll be fine. The crock pot will take care of this. And I just seasoned my chicken up with these same 4 seasonings, tossed it around a little bit. Now I'm going to pour in the rest of my frozen potatoes. I don't have a whole lot left in my bag. When you get to this layer, we're going to go in with just some good old black pepper. And salt. I know a lot of folks don't like to use too much salt, but this is chicken and potatoes. We need a fair amount of salt on here, or it's just really not going to have any flavor. And you know what? I just decided to go back over the very top with these 4 seasonings again. Onion powder, paprika, garlic powder, and Italian seasoning. These are my favorite seasonings on chicken and potatoes, and I just want a lot of it. For now, we're going to put the lid on. The recipe says you can cook it on low for 5 to 6, but normally I just do whatever I want, seems like. So I'm cooking mine on high. I got a little bit of a late start, and I want to eat a little earlier today, so I'm going to cook mine on high for about 4 hours. You just want to make sure that your chicken is cooked all the way through. When we come back, we'll put the topping on, and we'll be good to eat. Oh my gosh. Guys, this has been cooking about 3 hours, and I come over here and I thought, it don't look right like it normally does. #1, I'm cutting it down to low. I forgot to put my heavy whipping cream on. Before you even start cooking this, you drizzle about 3/4 of a cup of heavy whipping cream all over the top of this. This is what makes it so very good. I can't believe I forgot that. That's what happens when you get in a hurry. And you know what? Since I was late to the party, I'm just going to pour a little bit more on. Y'all, you can just go ahead and fire me right now. I have no business cooking today, obviously. All right, let's give it another little while and see how it looks. Now that is looking more like I like it. You got the creaminess. Now I'm going to take about a half a cup of some cheddar cheese and about a half a cup of some mozzarella cheese. Pop this lid back on here while it's still on low and let that melt. While that cheese is melting up, I've got 1 heart of romaine. I'm just going to cut this up and wash it really well. I will prep lettuce for a salad at the first of the week, and then we have it ready to go all week long when we want a salad till we run out and I have to do it again. And I always get asked how I keep my lettuce fresh all week long. This is my trick right here, a salad spinner. I wash my lettuce thoroughly, usually 2 times. You have to spin it out and get as much water off of it as you can. Then I store it in like a gallon size Ziploc bag with a paper towel in it, and we can eat out of it until it's gone. It stays fresh a lot longer this way. Again, I'm sorry to you guys who get sick of hearing this every week, but as long as people want to know how to keep from wasting food, I'll keep telling them. Shift your mindset to do what you want to do. You can use fresh potatoes, you could sub ground beef instead of your chicken, and all the little things like adding the heavy cream really make a difference. This is nothing fancy, but oh my goodness, it is so delicious. Chicken is perfect and cheesy. Cuts with a fork. It's just little bitty bites. Look at that gooiness. Oh, mercy. Look at all the deliciousness. I love this simple crock pot meal, and there's no law that says you couldn't use some ranch seasoning or some taco seasoning as it cooks, whatever your little heart desires. It's also really good with the Buffalo Wild Wings Parm garlic sauce too. If you're a regular here, you know how much I enjoy my week of HelloFresh deliveries every month. I schedule my deliveries for what I call my crunch week. It's the week of the month where I have a lot of desk work and editing that I need to get caught up on, and maybe meetings outside the house too. HelloFresh takes care of my meal planning, grocery shopping, and most of the prep work for me too. I just pick my favorite meals from over 50 chef-crafted recipes each week. Then HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit, delivers it right to my doorstep. Tonight was extra busy, so Patrick helped me with a lot of this meal. And all of the HelloFresh recipes come with a step-by-step instruction recipe card with lots of photos and pre-portioned ingredients that make it easy for anyone to just open up the bag, pull out those fresh ingredients, and start cooking. Tonight we made one of the fast and fresh 15-minute meals, but HelloFresh has lots of quick and easy recipe options to choose from in every week's menu. They're all ready in just 20 minutes or less. And right now, you can enjoy limited time seasonal recipes from the HelloFresh Taste of Summer series, like the Old Bay shrimp and sausage or grilled steak lettuce wraps. And when you sign up today, you'll unlock free appetizers for life. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code MOMMAAPPS for free appetizers for life. 1 free appetizer item per box while the subscription is active. That's code MOMMAAPPS at HelloFresh.com for free appetizers for life. I'll leave all the information linked down in the description box for you. And thank you so much, HelloFresh, for being a longtime supporter of my channel. Today we're making a crock pot tamale pie. Look at these ingredients. If you're a Tex-Mex lover like me, you're going to love this. And honestly, who doesn't have a ground beef and probably all this stuff right here in your cabinet and fridge already? I always like to spray my crock pot first. Then I'm going to put in a pound of ground beef, and I drained most of the grease off this, and then I added in a little salt and pepper, a teaspoon of cumin, and about a half a teaspoon of chili powder. Next, it's totally dump and go. Got that can of black beans that we've rinsed and drained. 1 can of whole kernel sweet corn. I've drained it. Putting in 1 can of Rotel, the diced tomatoes with green chilies. This one we're not draining. It's just got a little bit in it, and we're going to leave that juice. Then I've got a little can here of red enchilada sauce. These are like 10-ounce cans, just, you know, the regular old can. And I've diced up these green onions. This was about 3 of them. The recipe calls for 2, but I really like green onions. Now I'm just going to give this a pretty good little mix here. And Papa, he really likes green onions too. He just likes to eat them raw. So I hope he'll like this. This might not be exactly his kind of meal, but he's got plenty of them chicken and dumplings left over from yesterday. Guys, I'm so proud of them things. I'm so proud. But you know, I got to thinking, I don't remember my Mama Macaulay ever having like vegetables in hers, like the peas and carrots. I enjoyed that, but I don't know. I don't remember. Tell me in the comments, how do you remember your mama or granny or whoever made you chicken and dumplings? How do you remember if they made them with veggies, or is that something that we've just added here in the last little bit? Friends, that is all there is to this one for right now. This is a real easy one to put on before you go to work because it can cook on low for about 6 to 8 hours. Then when you get home, we'll do, you know, the adding of the bread and the cheese and all that. But if you're one of them people who keeps ground beef already browned up in the freezer, this one's just really quick to throw together in the mornings that way too. Now we're going to take 1 box of Jiffy muffin mix, cracking in 2 eggs, and I got a little bowl. Just mixing this up thoroughly. Wow, that looks and smells really, really good. We're just going to take our Jiffy and I'm just going to like spoon it all over the top. Again, I'm using my 6-quart oval crock pot. And I'm just going to spread it out here to the best of my abilities. It's alright if it's not perfect, it'll kind of puff up. Now I'm going to put the lid back on it and we're going to let it cook for 1 more hour just like this. It's been about an hour. We need to check that. Make sure it's done. I believe it is. I don't have a toothpick handy to check it. But I'm going to take this Fiesta blend cheese and I'm just going to take, about half of this bag. Should be about a cup. And I'm going to spread it all across the top of it. Now we're going to put this lid back on just long enough for that cheese to melt. This was my favorite of this whole video. I love the Tex-Mex vibe of it. Everything cooking low and slow all day long. It got so much flavor from the enchilada sauce, and not even to mention the cheesy Jiffy on the top. That is just a chef's kiss. This is wonderful to throw a bunch of green onions and salsa, whatever you like on a taco, throw it on here. But this was absolutely delicious. You're gonna love it. This tamale pie is a great example of what you can do with any recipe, which is think about what you have on hand and what your family likes to eat. You don't have any ground beef? No problem. I've made this plenty of times with chicken. I've substituted the red enchilada sauce with green, throw in some green chilies, and boom, then you've got a white chicken enchilada crock-pot casserole. Recipes are just suggestions, friends. Take what you have on hand and make it your own. Tonight we're having slow cooker Italian chicken sandwiches for supper. I can't wait to share this little recipe with you. This is basically a dump and go recipe. We are going to mix up our little sauce to begin with though. Starting with half a cup of Italian dressing. You want to use a pretty good Italian dressing here. I'm using this Kraft Supreme Italian. 1 teaspoon of sugar, a half a teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon crushed red pepper flakes, and 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. We're just going to get it all mixed together and it will be very easy to pour over our stuff in the crock pot then. Now over to our crock pot. Just going to give it a nice spray with some nonstick spray. This recipe called for about 1.5 pounds of chicken. I'm going to use 3 of these kind of big but kind of flat frozen chicken breast from Costco. On top of our chicken, we're going to put a 14.5 ounce can of petite diced tomatoes. and I did drain these very well. Then we're going to pour that little sauce we made up with the tomato paste and seasonings and Italian dressing right over the top. Pop that lid right on the top, and I think I'm going to cook mine on high for about 4 hours. It has been about 4.5 hours. The chicken is done perfectly, and I am just going to take my meat masher and shred it up right down inside of my crock pot. This has been smelling wonderful all day long. The original recipe calls for a 1/4 cup of fresh basil, but I only used 2 tablespoons of this chopped basil. If you buy these in the produce section, it lasts up to 4 weeks once you open it, but it's concentrated. They do some kind of voodoo magic on it, so you only want to use 1 tablespoon of this basil for every 2 tablespoons you would of fresh basil. Then we're just going to mix that right in. Gives it a beautiful, beautiful color, a little pop of green, and this dried basil has this wonderful flavor. I bought some fresh basil a week or so ago for a recipe, and it just tastes so good to me. When I saw this one called for basil, I just went ahead and got that little package. It was on sale, and I just enjoyed that flavor. I knew I would use that up in a month's time. Going to pop the lid on this and cut it over to keep warm, and we got one final step that makes this great. And look what we're going to do. We're going to cook up some garlic Texas toast. Going to cook it according to the package directions. After they've been in there about 4 minutes, I'm going to pull them out, and I'm going to top 2 of them with some provolone cheese. Put them back in the oven for their last minute of cooking. Just want to get them nice and gooey. This was absolutely amazing. There is no saving the best for last. This was delicious. One thing I will warn you, if you don't eat it on Texas toast, which we ended up finishing this off on regular bread, do make sure that you really squeeze a lot of the juice out. I did leave that juice in mine to keep my chicken nice and moist, but it is going to come on through that bread. So if you don't have a really thick bread, really squeeze that out when you heat your leftovers up. This would be wonderful in a wrap, over rice, or even just on top of a salad. Today we're going to make some French dip sandwiches in the crock pot. It just takes a very few simple ingredients, and I've got about a 2.5 pound chuck roast, and this thing's still pretty much froze solid. I put it from the freezer into the refrigerator yesterday, but that's okay. The crock pot is so forgiving. I cook things from frozen in here a lot. So let's get it started. First things first, give that crock pot a little spray just to keep things from sticking. I'm gonna put this huge roast in here, and this 2.5 pound roast is just perfect for this size crock pot for me. And I'm just going to season this one side with some black pepper, no salt, because all these soups have quite a bit of sodium in them. This one's truly a dump and go today. We're going to put in 1 can of condensed beef broth, 1 can of beef consommé, and 1 can of French onion soup. I'm also going to put in about 1/3 cup of red wine vinegar. If you had red wine, that's perfect. I don't, so I'm using red wine vinegar. You could also use red grape juice or even pomegranate juice. It gives you sort of that same flavor. If you had time to sear your meat, you can definitely do that. I just don't have time today, but it makes a beautiful color to it, and you got all that grease that you can put down in here, to start cooking. But honestly, it cooks up just fine, just like it is, true dump and go. And I am going to cook mine on high today. It can go as long as I need it to go. The longer it sets, the more tender this is going to pull apart. But since mine's frozen, I am going to put it on high just to give it the kickstart and get it cooking good and hard. My roast cooked up about 6 hours on high, and like I said, the longer and harder the better on a chuck roast.
It is just falling apart tender. Now I do like to go through my roast and pick out the big pieces of fat. Nobody really wants to eat that, but you can see how these 2 forks just pull this apart, and it is so good. Again, it was just me and Patrick here tonight, so I put ours on these sub rolls and I just loaded up one side with some provolone cheese. Then I just loaded it up with some of this roast. I put some provolone cheese back over the top of the roast, and we put this in the broiler just long enough to melt this cheese. Topped these with a little bit of mayonnaise if you wanted some horseradish sauce, or if you wanted to saute up some onions and green peppers, that would be beautiful too. You can make it as fancy or as simple as you want. Now I do use my reserve juice to dip in like au jus. I couldn't find my little ramekins, but you know what? These salsa containers worked just fine. We ain't too fancy around here.
In these next 2 shredded meat type crock pot recipes, I took a little extra step at the end and turned mine into sandwiches. But there's so many other ways that you could serve this up over rice, noodles, or mashed potatoes. You can use the leftover portions as a base for tacos, wraps, quesadilla style melts, or nachos. Always be thinking about how else or what else you can do with the recipe that you're making. There's nothing better than cooking once and eating twice. This creamy chicken taco soup is so easy. These ingredients, we've all got them, making it super simple, pantry staple, throw and go kind of crock pot meal. And when you're in a hurry, this little can strainer contraption will save you so much time. I drained my corn and my black beans, and I even rinsed them through this strainer. I didn't have to fool with pulling a great big one out of the cabinet to do this. And you can also use this strainer to mash down in the top of a can of tuna or pineapple to drain them. Ain't true to my Momma Mel fashion. Only I can mess up a dump and go crock pot meal. Forgot to spray my pot to begin with. This dish said to use 2 chicken breasts, so I put 4 in here. You can always tighten this up at the end with like a cornstarch slurry, but I just prefer to have it a little more chickeny to thicken it up. Y'all know I love a convenience item. Instead of cutting up an onion, I'm going to use this frozen onion, and this one has celery and green bell peppers in it. This dish did call for a red bell pepper, but you know what? I'm just doing it all in one right here. Green will be fine. I'm going to use about half that bag. Now I'm going to pour in 3 cups of chicken broth. If you used one of those big cartons like you see back there in the background, you're going to have 1 cup left in it. Now I'm going to pour in 2 cans of diced tomatoes with green chilies, also known as Rotel. I'm using Kroger brand and Aldi brand. Didn't drain them or anything. Going to put in 1 can of black beans. I did rinse and drain those. And 1 can of whole kernel corn, and I did drain it as well. Now it's time for the magic makers. We're going to use 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 1 teaspoon each of smoked paprika. If you just have regular paprika, that's fine. Ground cumin and garlic powder. Let's give it just a little bit of a stir down in here to get all of our seasonings down into our broth. No spice left behind. Let's get it off the side of that crock pot. And let's pop a top again. And I'm going to cook mine on high for 3 to 4 hours. If you've got a long day of work, you could let this go all day on low. 6 to 8 hours, probably even longer. Okay, let's take a little peek in here. It smells really, really good. Let's look at our chicken and see how it's looking. Oh yeah, very good and done. 9 times out of 10, I just shred my chicken up down in my crock pot. But sometimes with soup, that gets a little hard or a little messy. So I'm just going to pull these out here to a plate. And I'll just shred it up right here on this plate. Okay, got this huge plate full of chicken all shredded up. Very carefully add that back down into your crock pot. Get it stirred back down into your soup. That's my favorite part, is when you shred that chicken up and stir it back in. It just all comes together then. I've had my cream cheese sitting out on the counter all day today. It's pretty cold in my house because it's pretty hot outside. But it does help if you have your cream cheese kind of at room temperature or softened. And I'm going to kind of chunk it up into smaller cubes. Sometimes I'll just lay the whole block of cream cheese in with the soup and let it cook down in it all day. And my soup has been cooking about 3.5 hours on high heat. If you've been cooking this all day on low, when you put your cream cheese in here, you definitely want to turn it up onto high, because this stuff will never get broken down and melted in if you don't. Now just lit it back up, cook it on high for 30 more minutes, and we'll be ready to eat. This soup is so flavorful and delicious. Not to mention, it's a beautiful soup. And this right here is football food at its finest. We love chili, but you know, you get tired of it after a couple weeks. You can garnish this with anything you want. Avocado slices, green onions, tortilla chips, whatever. I even forgot to put cheese on this. It's so good. And I tell you a secret, I make this one all summer long too. Pretty much any chicken soup that you make, especially these Tex-Mex inspired ones, you can swap the chicken out for ground beef or even ground chicken or turkey. I forget about those too. The cream cheese is always optional, and you can definitely use seasoning packets in place of all the individual seasonings. And that's true for any crock-pot recipe, not just soups. Think taco, ranch, Italian seasonings, and they're great on any meat, whether it be pork, chicken, or beef. And honey, don't get me started on the frozen recipe starters with the bell peppers and the onions and the veggies. Grab one of those, a protein, a seasoning packet, and some cans from the pantry. You've got yourself a full crock-pot meal. Today we're going to make a garlic parm chicken and potato crock-pot meal. And I'm using about 1 pound of boneless, skinless chicken breasts that I have cubed into pieces. It's almost thawed out. I'm also tossing in about 1 pound of some baby red potatoes, not even chopping them because they are tiny. Using 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese right out of the green can, a nice little spoonful of garlic. I'm putting in a generous 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning and 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Going to throw in a little pepper and salt to taste. And we're going to do about 1/2 tablespoon of some olive oil. I'm just going to mix this up just a little bit. And this looks like a small amount, and it is a small amount. I'm actually halving the recipe that I'll have linked for you here below. I think I'm going to put a little bit more oil. I'm ready for a good meal tonight. I don't want fast food, and I don't have time to cook. It's just going to be me and Patrick here. So I'm going to use a crock pot. Never think that you can't use a crock pot just because you have 2 people. I can never emphasize this enough. Customize recipes to what you need for your size family. I'm not worried about there not being any liquid in here because, like I said, my chicken, it's still just a tiny bit frozen. So we'll have a little liquid cooking out. You can see I'm getting a little bit of a late start. It's 11:11, but I'm going to pop that lid on there. I'm going to crank this baby up to high, and I bet we'll have chicken by 3 or 4 o'clock this evening. It has been a little over an hour, and my chicken is thawed out now. So I am going to kick this over to low, just so nothing burns in here.
It's been about 3 or 4 hours later, and this is completely done. I'm just going to take a nice little handful of some shredded Parmesan cheese and put it over the top. Going to stick the lid back on there and let that get all melted down. While that is going on, I have taken a bag of steamable broccoli, and I did go ahead and steam it in the microwave just so it could go ahead and be done, because I like to roast it up and get it pretty good and crunchy in the oven. I just drizzle a little bit of olive oil on it and get it all coated. Then I'll hit it with a little of my anti-no-nos, which is salt, onion powder, and garlic powder, and go about 20 minutes on 420 degrees, and it is perfect. And now the cheese has had time to melt on our dish in the crock pot. It is beautiful.
I love my broccoli a little bit crispy like this. Super good. The color on this chicken is so good. It's come right out of the crock pot like that. But look at all the flavor. Delicious. And our little potatoes. Perfect. Soft and fluffy on the inside. So delicious.
This is such an easy, little impressive dinner. This makes a great date night supper. It's as good as anything that you would go out and get in a restaurant. And it was so quick and so easy. Even though it's a crock pot meal, it really just doesn't take long at all if you cook it in high and you cut your pieces up small.
This is a very easy crock pot recipe. This is all you need. Plus, I went ahead and put about 2 pounds of chicken in my crock pot. First thing we're going to do is just take 1 envelope of your favorite taco seasoning and sprinkle it across your chicken. Then I'm taking this little 4-ounce can of diced green chilies, not draining or anything, just dumping it all right on the top. Last step for right now is taking 1 can of Rotel. I'm not draining this. And I've just recently found this lime and cilantro kind, and I am excited to try it. What we love about a dump and go crock pot recipe is you dump it in, stick the top on, and you're good to go. I'm going to cook it on high for about 4 to 6 hours. I'm heading to Costco today, and I'm going to let the crock pot do all of the work. When we get back, we will add just a few more little things when this is done to make it absolutely delicious. Okay, it's been 8 hours. We went to Costco. We just had a really fun day. So let's see what we've got here. Normally, I try to get all the liquid out. But you know what? There's not much liquid. I'm just going to go in here with my meat masher and start shredding this up. I've got it turned over to warm now. But if I feel like when I shred this up that it's too much liquid, you can just put it on low or high and it'll cook some of it out. It ain't no big deal. Crock pots are very forgiving. Look how beautiful that is, and I wish that you could smell it. That's just another thing I love about the crock pot. You can put something in here pretty much. There are a few recipes you have to watch, you know, that they're going to be done and get overdone in a short amount of time. But when you throw chicken and stuff like this in here, man, you can just do whatever you want to do for the day and let it go. And I just don't ever know what I might get into. So that's perfect for me. Now I'm going to take this salsa con queso and I'm going to put about a cup, maybe a little less in here. Let's see what we got there. Let's do half that jar. And we're just going to stir this in. That is a beautiful, beautiful sight right there. I'm just going to put the lid on this and leave it on low, and I'm going to chop up some toppings, and then I'm going to show you something neat I'm going to try tonight. Never done it before. I'm going to try something new that I saw. Got my pan heating. I'm going to spray it a little bit because I just don't want to take any chances here. And I'm going to start with some Monterey Jack cheese, and I'm just going to put me a little round of it right here. Then I'm going to take this tortilla that has the end cut off of it for some reason, and I'm going to smush it down on there. Now let's get a little bit of our queso chicken on here. Let's just do a little bit more. Then what is supposed to happen is that the cheese should like be able to be lifted up and adhere to the outside of this tortilla. So you're gonna have like a fried cheese flour tortilla. Little soft taco. Let's see if it works. I might be about to make a big old mess. I think I forgot to say, I have my skillet on medium heat. It's killing me. I don't know what's going on under there. But let's try. Oh, is it working? Maybe, kinda, sorta. Maybe I didn't wait long enough. Let's put it back down. I might have just messed it up. I can't stand it. Let's put it over. Oh yeah, I think I just didn't let it go long enough. Get on there, cheese. Okay, let's see if we can turn it. Looks like we got a little cheese burning on that side. Oh yes. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, now I know. I just didn't let it set long enough. I'm so excited. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, I think we got it now. I think maybe I used too much cheese. Maybe I should do a thinner layer. And I'm gonna blot that grease up. And I forgot, out in the freezer, I had some of this queso quesadilla cheese. We're gonna use it on the next one. Okay, let's see what I can do this time. Actually, I am gonna finish off this Monterey Jack cheese. And oh, it's sizzly now. Let's spread it out just a little. Very quickly, grab another tortilla. Squish it onto it. Chicken. Check. Okay, now my skillet's hotter. I think we can do it. Guys, that was perfect. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, let's take a look at the first side again. Oh, look at that.
Friends, thank you so much for just being here for any silly old thing that I want to try. I don't know why I thought this would be so awesome, but it really was. This is just what's fun about cooking. This is what I like to do with my family. Just silly, fun, different ways of trying things to break up the same old routine. This was delicious. They're great on their own, even if you don't cheese fry your shells. I hope you enjoy this one.
We are going to make us a slow cooker pineapple upside down dump cake. I'm going to start with a stick of butter, and the first thing I'm going to do is just rub it all along the bottom of my crock pot. You could definitely use a non-stick spray, but since I have this stick of butter out, it don't take much. I'm just going to use butter. Then I'm going to throw what's left in this glass Pyrex measuring dish, and I'm going to microwave it to melt it. Now that I have that stick of butter melted, I'm going to add in a half a cup of brown sugar. Mix that together really good. I forgot one thing here. This is my handy dandy crockpot leveling device. It's just a piece of cardboard folded up. One of my crockpot legs here, that little rubbery knob on the bottom's come off. And it makes my crockpot not sit level. Now we're going to take this yummy little mixture and add it to the bottom of the crockpot. And you just want to spread that out evenly all along the bottom. If you wanted to, you could throw some like crushed pecans or something like that down in here. Now I'm taking a can of crushed pineapple. This is no sugar added, and it is in pineapple juice. And I'm not draining this. And we're just going to spread this all along the bottom. You could definitely use pineapple tidbits or anything like that. And the recipe did say, this is going to be pretty sweet, so you might want to, make sure it's unsweetened. But quite honestly, this is just what I had in my pantry. If mine had been sweetened, I probably just would have used it anyway. Now I've got a little 6-ounce jar of maraschino cherries, and I did drain these. Whoops, I also rinsed them, but you can still see some of that juice is still coming out. I'm just placing them randomly down in here. You don't have to rinse them, but I didn't want a whole lot of redness throughout there. And if I didn't mention, you don't just have to use pineapple. You could use any kind of fruit filling you wanted to in here, but it is a pineapple upside down cake, so I'm using pineapple. You could do a pumpkin, a blueberry, whatever kind of upside down cake you want. Now we're going to use 1 yellow cake mix. I'm using this one I picked up at Aldi. I prefer them because they have no synthetic colors. I'm joking, y'all. I've never noticed it saying that before. That just struck me as funny. I've also got half a stick of melted butter. Now, I like to mix my cake mix and my melted butter together. You could definitely just dump this dry cake mix right over top of that fruit in the crock pot, then pour this melted butter over it or even cut it up in little pieces. I've done it that way. And once I get it mixed in, this is my family I'm feeding. I just use my hands. They don't mind. I wouldn't do this if I was making this like to take somewhere. But if you just get this all incorporated into the mix, you're not going to have those little dry patches of cake like you end up with sometimes in these crock pot recipes where it didn't get any butter on it. Now I'm going to take this cake mixture and I'm just going to sprinkle it all across the top. If you've been here very long at all, you know that I am all about keeping it simple. I like to cut out extra steps that I think are just silly and not needed. I also don't like to dirty up a bunch of dishes that I'm just going to have to end up washing later if I don't have to. But this is one case in particular where I feel like the added step in washing the dish is worth it. Everything's looking like it's supposed to. Let's pop a top on it. I'm going to cook mine on high and I'll start checking it at about an hour and a half. It'll probably take 2 hours. These crock pot cobblers, they don't take long at all. You're just looking for the fruit to kind of come up from underneath the bottom and get nice and bubbly. Everybody's crock pots cook differently, so you just want to keep a close eye on yours. It has been 2 hours. Look at that. You can see the gooey fruit coming up, and I did actually kind of get right there in that spot just to kind of make sure all the cake was done. If y'all know me, I'm the world's worst for saying, cook it in the crock pot for 4 hours, then I'll come back and I'll be like, okay, it's been 12 hours. And I'm bad to leave stuff too long. But I'm here today and I've watched this, so I feel like it's done. It feels done right there. So we are going to actually just turn the crock pot off. We're going to leave the lid off this and let it sit here for 30 minutes, and then we'll serve it. I said at the first of this video that I didn't save the best for last, but I might have told a fib because I kind of forgot about this. This is so good. What is not to love about a pineapple upside down cake, especially in the crock pot? So gooey, so delicious. Of course, you don't turn this out like you do a normal pineapple upside down cake. Just wanted to make that clear. You're not turning your crock pot upside down and dumping it out. Also, if you just wanted to make it in the oven, throw it in a 9x13 pan, 40 to 50 minutes on 350 degrees. It is absolutely delicious. We put a little ice cream and caramel over ours. But this recipe makes me hungry every time I see it. Remember, you can use any flavor of canned fruit or pie filling that you'd like. Mix it up with a different flavor of cake mix. The possibilities are endless with this one. And friends, I may have told another fib. There is one more crock pot recipe you need to watch. It's this one right here. It's full of barbecue and cookout inspired recipes, all made in the crock pot, so you can beat the heat this summer. Thank you so much for being here. Until I see you again, I send you love from my kitchen.